Living out in the country as I do, sometimes I find myself sitting on the front porch like I was earlier, staring up at the stars and listening to the wind go through the trees and hearing the crickets chirp. Takes me back to when I was a kid. I used to love to get lost in reading. One of my favorite books was Walden by Henry David Thoreau. And of course, it's a common fact he's an author and a poet and a transcendentalist. But what about the man? We don't know too much about the man himself. He was born in 1817 and he died of tuberculosis in 1862. I'm sorry. He was only 44 years old. That's not much time on this earth. And in just a few short years, we could classify his lifestyle as, in modern day terms, as a teacher, a workaholic, an isolationist, and a rebel. As a teacher, we know he went to school there in Concord, Massachusetts, and then he went on to Harvard College. And after Harvard College, he went to Harvard University, all of which his brother helped pay for and put him through school. And then after they got finished, the two of them taught school together. And they taught together for a while until his brother developed lockjaw and passed away. And Thoreau kind of lost taste for it, but he went to work doing something else. He went to work being a surveyor. The man was a workaholic. He uh, he was writing constantly, and because they weren't selling very well, he was having to survey. And he was a skilled laborer. And um, when he didn't have any survey jobs, he worked as a pencil maker with his father. But all the while, he was continually working and writing. Like I said, unfortunately, most of his writings didn't pay very well. And at one point in time, Thoreau became an isolationist. A friend of another author, Ralph Waldo Emerson, had a family there in Concord. Was a family there in Concord that had some land, and he went out there and built a cabin, and he spent 2 years by himself at, and that was called Walden, and he wrote the book Walden. That was one of the first books I'd ever read. Um, Sometimes, as an isolationist, you think that they're out there all by themselves all the time, just living off the land, but the man loved nature, and he couldn't get enough of it. He wrote about nature, and sometimes he'd take journeys to Maine and across the upper states all by himself. Um, for that day and age, he was kind of considered a rebel, what we would call today a rebel. Um, he even spent time in jail for tax evasion. The 2 years that he was out on Walden's Pond, he decided he wouldn't pay tax, and he didn't think the government, he should have to pay the government any tax, but they thought different, and they threw him in jail for a little while. In his day and time, one of the major issues was slavery, and he wrote many articles in support of abolishing slavery. And one of the big activists of the time was John Brown, and he even wrote an article in support of John Brown's efforts to end slavery. He and the government didn't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. Not only was slavery going on, there was the Mexican War, and he wrote passages about how the government against the government for um, for waging the Mexican War. He didn't think it was right on their part. Was he a big liberal activist that got up and screamed and shout? No, he did it through his writings. He was a peaceful, um, somewhat like Mandela would probably be proud of today. Although he didn't live long here on this earth, you know, his writings had made lasting impressions with many. I still go back and think many a days. The writings illustrated the man that he was, And actually, Henry David Thoreau was a man who wore many hats. Thank you.